Hello, welcome to a special post-news update. I'm John Pollock, along with Wai Ting, here on a Friday afternoon to go through some of the major news and notes prior to tonight's SmackDown. Hello, Wai.
Hey, John, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Congratulations, coming off another season of MCU later.
Yes, thank you. Yes, we just had our season finale last night. Me, WH Park, and Nate Milton, and a bunch of callers from the Post Wrestling Cafe. Question is, have you finished Loki?
No. I am in the midst of a Marvel catch-up process where I'm in the midst of Black Widow. That's first and foremost, because I do have to talk about that particular film. Loki will follow. So I'm going to have some free time next week. I will catch up to Loki, though. I will. I have 2 episodes to watch.
All right.
I understand It ended on I don't know. I don't even know what the rules are. But we can say there's a second season of Loki, correct?
Yes, that is correct, yeah.
Was that unexpected?
No, there were reports, but
Okay.
I don't think it was officially reported by Marvel until the end of this episode. So
Right.
there will be a season 2. And maybe we'll get some of your thoughts on it all on Tuesday.
And every announcement of a new continuation or another series, I just think of like the bond of yourself and WH Park that will be infinite.
I've been seeing talking to a lot of WH Park recently, and Infinite. I mean, I don't know about Infinite, but it's definitely getting up there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, are you guys going to go into what if territory? I mean, are you guys just going to cover the gamut?
I think so. Yeah, definitely. It's supposed to be a big series.
All right. Well, with that, you can check out that show. If you're a Post Wrestling Cafe member, it's up there with Nate Milton joining Wai and WH. And again, we will be live tonight for all patrons starting at 10:15 Eastern. But we want to do this update to go through all the news portion. And then we will be going right into SmackDown in Houston and opening it up to your calls. I want to hear from lots of people tonight. So look out for that, 10:15 Eastern. Let's go back to Wednesday night, Fyter Fest. It was a very well-received show Wednesday night. I think a lot of people just loving the atmosphere. It was a very enjoyable 2 hours, but that was definitely extended once the television viewership figures came in way with 1,025,000 watching Wednesday night's Fyter Fest with a .40 in the 18 to 49 demographic. An incredible figure for AEW under the best of circumstances, more pronounced when the second hour of the show was going against the NBA Finals, and it was the second hour that performed above the first hour. This was a tremendous figure for AEW to accomplish on Wednesday.
Absolutely. I mean, back on Wednesdays now, really in the full swing of things, and it seems like with the addition of these live crowds and a pretty strong show, they are right back to it. So really great results, and I think it bodes really well for some of the talents that were on this one.
Yeah, this was, a huge feather in the cap for several. And Brandon Thurston actually put up a graph going through the quarter hours. The peak in total viewers was in the second hour between 9:15 and 9:30 Eastern, which featured Britt Baker's promo in the ring, the backstage retort from Nyla Rose and Vicky, and then the attack by MJF and Shawn Spears on Jericho, and Sammy Guevara versus Wheeler Yuta. So I'm looking at that way. Like that's a real big statement, the fact that was the peak in viewership. And then further to that, the peak for 18 to 49 and 18 to 34 was the Elite Dark Order segment focusing on Kenny Omega and Hangman Page. But even going later into the second hour, like it did level off a little from that peak during the Guevara, Yuta, Britt Baker segment. But they topped 1 million viewers for the Yuka Sakazaki Penelope Ford match, and virtually identical for the Coffin match, which was 1,002,000 viewers. So that was a very strong second hour. Not what you would have expected going into this, that you would think the first hour would be the big wave and then it would level off in hour 2. So I think that also speaks to just the momentum of that show, that if people were tuning in, maybe they stuck around for hour 2, or they were so interested in this Coffin match. There's several factors you can look at it, but it was a very promising sign given who some of the key players were when we're seeing these numbers broken down.
Or it could simply be the atmosphere. You tune into a show like that, and there's certainly something infectious about the entire event. everybody felt like a star, and we're talking about several people who just really you wouldn't necessarily have reason to believe would be, such they'd be able to hold on to a rating at least doing so. So maybe in my opinion, I think it's just the show in general.
And not to say this was just another Dynamite, like it was a themed show. You had your first of a kind for its stipulation in the coffin match in an AEW setting. But, this was not blood and guts. This was, something in between that. So, you look to next week, for instance, another interesting figure to look at is without NBA competition, are they able to ride this momentum beyond this show that for whatever reason, it just seemed everything was in perfect alignment for this great audience. And it just seems like AEW has certainly hit this wave coming back to Wednesdays, that they are really firing on all cylinders in front of a live crowd that I think has enhanced these shows that much more. And you're going into a very interesting time period where you are getting these fantastic results from your fan base, and you're about to ask that audience for another hour on Friday nights as well. Like, what long term, it will be interesting to see what they can establish on Friday nights, but does that impact the Wednesday number at all as well?
It'll be interesting to see. My gut tells me that Wednesday is still, such a more beneficial, easier time slot for most people to watch at 8 o'clock versus, Fridays at 10, that I think Wednesday will hold. But Friday, we'll have to see what sort of cards, what sort of event, what sort of level of importance that they attach it to. At least, for the first several months, I imagine it would be just as important as Dynamite. So I don't expect similar ratings to Dynamite, but I do expect them to be, probably better than expectations, as with most things with AEW.
Yeah, just some final stats from Wednesday. The NBA game, it did 10,250,000 viewers. So a big competition they were against, but also the Wrestling Observer noting the fact that Dynamite did beat Raw in men 18 to 49 and men 35 to 49 by 21,000 and 26,000 viewers, respectively. Raw was going against the Home Run Derby, so it's not like it was competition free either on Monday. But again, another big statement, especially males 18 to 49 edging out Raw.
And with football coming up on Mondays, that might be a stat that might repeat itself for a couple of weeks.
Yes, and both will be facing Olympic competition in just next week, actually, or 2 weeks, I guess, because the Olympics start the 23rd. So there you have that coming up as well. So I thought this was a pretty significant week when it came to ratings notes, and just a number that kind of came out of nowhere and I think hit people when that was reported on Thursday. We look ahead, and staying in AEW, the pre-sale started earlier this week for the Grand Slam edition of Dynamite at Arthur Ashe Stadium, and today was the official public on sale. And as of just before noon Eastern on Friday, WrestleTix on Twitter, which does a great job of kind of culling all this Ticketmaster data, is stating that over 14,000 tickets have been distributed. That meaning sold, comps, like what the tickets that are out there in the market, with the current setup somewhere between 16,500 and 16,829 for Arthur Ashe Stadium, which it's been said if demand is so high, they could increase that capacity to 19,000 if necessary. But the fact that 14,000 tickets are outweigh, this is already a success. This is going to be a gigantic show for AEW. Are you surprised at all that the demand was at this level for the first New York show?
I honestly am a little bit, because of the Newark show being so close attached to it, because besides, I would say, Dynamite itself, I'm also just wondering where people are finding out about all this. And I suppose it really is it just comes down to the hardcores that are so aware of everything that they know to get right here on a Friday, get there for a pre-sale, buying up like almost half of that amount on that day. And then the rest just like going out right away on a Friday. So, again, I shouldn't be surprised at this point with this type of performance from an AEW show, but it still does amaze me a little bit.
I think it follows the trend of what we have seen that have been the big ticket buying shows, those first day big ticket sales. It's events that come with some kind of significance to them. Like, this is going to be an unbelievable atmosphere. It's the first time in New York. And I think that really lends itself to the fan base that is going after, like, this is not some rank and file show. And we've seen the shows that feel historically significant are the ones that I don't know if there's a ceiling on what, whether it comes to distance, price on tickets. Like, I'm on Ticketmaster here, and there were, like, granted, this is like front row on the floor, but they were listed at like well over, I think it was like $1,700 per ticket or something like that. This is on Ticketmaster. So, I mean, this is not a scenario either where it's
1,700. Wow.
Yeah. Again, that's front row on the floor. I mean, the more it seems like the range right now that you can still get tickets to this show are like
tickets as cheap as 25.
Yeah. 25 is kind of the low end. So, I mean, it's going to be a big gate for the company, and it's going to be this will be the biggest Dynamite of all time. I think this will probably likely be ahead of the first show, the Washington DC show that was 14,000 and change. Mm-hmm. We're at 14,000 now that are out there. We don't have the paid number exactly, but those are the tickets out.
It's going to look remarkable in that stadium. I mean, it remains to be seen if they'll do the open air deal. But I wonder how much of this audience will be the same as the one from Newark. How many people are going to both? But obviously, in those areas, there are enough people to service, a ticket for everybody if they wanted to. But man, it seems like it'll be a big show.
Yeah, it's a good point because again, they are running Newark the Wednesday prior, but typically when you're going into a market so close together, your concern would be just, people spending that amount of money. But you have to remember, those Newark tickets were sold ages ago that fans have just held on to those tickets. So it's not kind of that hurdle of buying, two high priced tickets back to back. It's like you bought these tickets over a year and a half ago, and this time all you're investing is another night of free time for yourself that I'm sure there's a lot of people in New York and New Jersey that are more than willing to have a night out and just bought tickets for I'm going to go to Newark and I'm going to go to this show.
At least that's how you would reason it with your significant other when you tell them, I'm going to buy these tickets for these shows that I'm going to the week after going to this one. Well, I already I was supposed to go to that one and I didn't get to go. So I'm actually buying only one ticket for this year. So that's how you could reason it. Yeah, very, very smart.
There's probably some fans that are just saying goodbye to their families. They're going on tour with AEW across the country as they're on the road. So, a big week for AEW based on those two news stories. So tonight, SmackDown, we've got 3 matches announced with Roman Reigns and the Usos against Edge, Rey, and Dominic Mysterio. This will be Edge's first match since WrestleMania. For Roman Reigns, how many matches prior to tonight has Roman Reigns had on TV since coming back last summer?
Wouldn't be much. I'm going to say 1, 2, like certainly in the single digits.
He's had 7. Yeah, more than your guess. But this is the first one since the Daniel Bryan career match. Bianca Belair against Carmella for the women's title, and then the 4 male participants in the Money in the Bank ladder match on the SmackDown side with Kevin Owens, Big E, King Nakamura, and Seth Rollins. But of course, the big factor tonight is a sold-out crowd at the Toyota Center in Houston, Texas. Do you sense a big buzz for tonight? There certainly is a lot of promotional stuff out there of talent doing interviews and WWE building this one up. They put out that video with the welcome back of fans. I'm sure there will be something to start the show of, kind of welcoming everyone back. Maybe even a Vince cameo, perhaps.
Maybe a Vince cameo. Certainly they've talked about maybe new production elements, new sets.
That's right.
I'm looking forward to that a whole lot. I don't expect too much change in terms of the show content itself and really all that, but production-wise, I'm always interested to see what new stuff they do.
Is there anyone interesting on this card tonight that you're kind of curious to see what the live reaction is for them?
Jimmy Uso.
Oh, good point. Yep.
Yeah. I think it'll be fine. I don't think the audience, will boo the man for something like that. At least I don't really hope so. I hope that they don't. So, but it'll be interesting to see.
They have also added the Mysterios defending the tag titles against the aforementioned Usos for the kickoff show on Money in the Bank on Sunday. And Tamina inserted into the women's Money in the Bank match on Sunday night as well. So that is our full lineup as of now for Money in the Bank. And it looks pretty full now. 6 matches on the main card, a kickoff match, and we have all 8 slots filled in the men's and women's ladder matches.
Why did they wait that long to announce Tamina?
I do not know.
You know, like Natalya and Tamina were both announced off air, and even on Monday, like they made a big deal about Natalya getting into the match with Tamina just standing there. Meanwhile, Tamina was going to get into the match as well, but didn't necessarily have to do anything to earn the opportunity.
No. You just get there was quite the disparity of how many of, well, especially on the SmackDown side, how the women qualified versus, on the men's side, Kevin Owens having to go through a war with Sami Zayn to get to this match.
Well, I guess fewer names to choose from.
So that is the lineup, and let's chat a bit about this report that came out from Sean Ross Sapp at Fightful Select, that it appears that Bill Goldberg is going to be back on Monday at the Raw in Dallas, and it looks like the direction is Bobby Lashley, Bill Goldberg for SummerSlam.
You know, you brought it up on one of our recent shows, and I didn't think that they would do it because I just feel like the Goldberg experiment has really, ran its course over the past year, even though the last time we saw him was quite a while ago, I suppose, by WWE terms. Judging by online reaction, people aren't happy about this. They don't want to see another Goldberg run. They don't want to see the possibility of another Goldberg title reign. And in terms of an in-ring match, I don't know if they're looking forward to that either.
Is there a benefit to Lashley just getting a win over Goldberg as opposed to someone else on the Raw roster?
There is, sure, but then you're also kind of being guaranteed. Like, how long of a match do you think this will go, John?
5-6 minutes.
Yeah, we've seen that match. We've seen that match many a times. And even if it does mean something for Lashley, to me, that's more served for TV at this point. You know, why not save it for this big edition of, Raw with the audience coming back? I understand on paper, I think Lashley Goldberg looks maybe attractive to a casual fan, but I think you also primarily have to service your hardcores. And I think the Goldberg thing's kind of been, it's not really doing it anymore.
I think it's the argument between the big picture perspective and the immediate one that they are faced with in booking a card for SummerSlam. In the big picture, I think this is very much an indictment that we have no baby faces built up to the level that they can be put in a title match in a big show with Bobby Lashley. And therefore, a Bill Goldberg is a much bigger name than anyone we have built up. And that's a problem. In the short term, though, like that is the dilemma you are facing. And we were not going to get Bobby Lashley versus Xavier Woods at SummerSlam. And that's where Goldberg, who, I mean, it's amazing when you look at the history of this man's relationship with WWE, that now he is someone that they can, he's outlined his deal calls for 2 matches per year, and you can just slot him into these. And you just think of, man, if they were able to get on the same page 20 years ago, the value of a Bill Goldberg in 2001, they eventually got there, but they had that terrible first run together where neither side, I think, wanted to continue working with the other. And then they seemed to really get it right in 2016. And now you're at a place where you have this deal with him, and it's getting Goldberg onto TV for a couple of weeks, which might be of some value for the Raw number, and a big entrance at SummerSlam. That's what this is. And most likely, you would assume, but you should never assume, is, a Bobby Lashley win. But then again, the night after SummerSlam, it's back to your long-term issue, and that is building up baby faces for Bobby Lashley on the Raw side. And you can only do the switches so many times of SmackDown talent over to Raw. It's a bigger issue, and not to make everything an AEW comparison, but I think one of the strengths of AEW programming has been the progression of seeing all these young talents that are now reaping the benefits of protected booking. They're now moving numbers. Like, we're seeing, significant stake attached to MJF and Sammy Guevara and Darby Allin and Britt Baker and Jungle Boy that can now move numbers. And I think that really captivates your audience when you see that next wave and they're protected, they're isolated as future stars. And now we're starting to see that commitment pay dividends and your audience is responding to them as stars. And that is something very much lacking in WWE.
Yeah. Well, an opportunity would be this weekend with Money in the Bank. Typically that is a gimmick reserved for that sort of, just bubbling underneath the surface type of star. And, having somebody cash in for SummerSlam, I guess it could be possible. We can't throw that possibility out there at the end of this Goldberg Lashley match. But, yeah.
Who is your favorite in the men's match between Ricochet, John Morrison, Riddle, Drew McIntyre, Big E, Kevin Owens, Nakamura, and Seth Rollins?
I could see Riddle because of his storyline with Randy Orton getting a whole lot of focus, with the element of the briefcase being attached to it. I could see it being a way to further their feud. Maybe they might even challenge each other for the briefcase. So I think he would be a candidate. I mean, Drew McIntyre, of course, but that to me is just such a, what are you going to do? Tease Drew and Drew and Bobby Lashley again? It's just not interesting at all. Nor do I.
You either break the stip or it's going to Reigns, and Drew shouldn't be beating Roman Reigns right now. So I just don't know what is beyond. I don't like Drew winning it. I just don't think it really works. If you want to get to that destination, you can do it certainly without the briefcase.
I can see Big E as well, because yes. Big E is one of those talents that might be actually bubbling on the surface if they don't screw him up between now and whenever they want. But he's got a lot of work, I think, before they need to do a lot of work for him in order to get him to a level where I think the audience can buy him beating Roman Reigns, and not just beat Roman Reigns, but to lead the company and to main event every single one of these big shows. So that might be a little bit down the road. And then Seth Rollins is another possibility too, of course. You can do the whole gimmick with Seth having already won the Money in the Bank briefcase. Him challenging Roman Reigns is going to be something significant. But I see Seth is teasing a match with Edge right now for SummerSlam. And therefore, maybe the gimmick is not necessarily certainly not something he needs. So maybe my choices would be between. I'm going with Riddle. How about you?
I can see it being Riddle. I mean, you often look at them getting more legs out of a heel with the briefcase, but there aren't a whole lot of candidates here. Like John Morrison is not winning this thing. I don't think Seth needs it, but I don't totally discredit that. And just going back to our previous point, I think it really does emphasize the fact that the last month, Ricochet has been a highlight of Raw programming. And yet, I think just about everybody would look at Ricochet and just scoff at the idea of him getting this briefcase because there's no faith that they would ever go to that level with Ricochet. And that's a deeper seated issue of just a lack of faith in certain performers that you have seen beaten like a drum to the point that they will never get that honest push that an audience member may have hoped for at one point, but that train has long since left the station.
You watch these shows and you kind of get the sense that Vince sees Ricochet as somebody who he can rely on to deliver a great match. Somebody you can rely on to deliver a great ladder match probably. But beyond that, I don't see him and Morrison really having a significant storyline role coming out of this match.
The match itself, I think, is going to be spectacular. I said this week. I think this has the potential to be among the best Money in the Bank ladder matches they've ever produced. You certainly have the talent to do so and come up with a lot of creativity. I think this should be off the charts. It's the match that I think will be the match of the show. We won't go through the whole card here, but how about on the women's side? Asuka, Naomi, Alexa Bliss, Nikki Ash, Liv Morgan, Zelina Vega, Natalya, Tamina. Unless anyone gets replaced.
Sure, yeah. I don't see it being Natalya nor Tamina. I don't see it being Asuka nor a Naomi. Could it be Alexa Bliss? It's a character that has kind of been a little bit more kind of subdued over the past couple weeks without seeing too many sort of shenanigans. But it's also a character that I don't think needs a gimmick like a Money in the Bank. Nikki Ash is somebody that they put a lot of TV airtime to lately. I think she would be one of the leading candidates, as much as I think the gimmick might not necessarily be receiving critical acclaim or whatsoever. Of the choices here, she is somebody who I guess fits the bill of being sort of that project that I can see them wanting to attach that rocket to. But I think my prime candidate would be Liv Morgan. You know, she not only fits that bill, I think she's somebody that they've wanted to get ready for this spot in a while. Who knows, what got sped up here due to Bayley. But I think Liv Morgan is the person who's received the most TV push heading into this Money in the Bank. Her constantly coming out and arguing with Sonya about not being able to get into the match, finally getting into the match. It seems to, a win here would seem to complete her character arc. And I don't even know if we need to mention Zelina Vega. She's such an afterthought.
I mean, week 2, she loses week 1 with the return, and week 2, she's not even on the program.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. They did an incredible job of making her an afterthought of this return. They're not identical, but you look at like the introduction of a Malachi Black on AEW, and he feels like the hottest thing on the program, and WWE brings back Zelina Vega, granted, without fans, but nonetheless, you beat her right away, and she's in this match, and she doesn't win this thing. I think you have just slotted her into just another role on the roster.
If it doesn't, if the way they booked her on her first night doesn't tell you how unimportant of a character she is in the grand scheme of things to your casual audience, not featuring her completely in the second week, it pretty much cements that. So on your go-home show, to not at least have a promo or some sort of presence from her, you might as well categorize her with Natalya and Tamina as people to focus on in a match like this.
The last thing is we've got the Slammiversary pay-per-view on Saturday night, and Davey Portman and John Cena will have a post-show on the site later on Saturday evening. It's got Kenny Omega, Sami Callihan in a no DQ match for the Impact title, Ultimate X for the X Division title with Josh Alexander defending against Petey Williams, Trey Miguel, Ace Austin, Chris Bay, and Rohit Raju. That sounds really strong. Chris Sabin against Moose. Violent by Design against Rich Swann and Willie Mack, TJP and Fallah Bahh and the Good Brothers for the tag titles. Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steelz against Rosemary and Havoc for the Knockouts tag titles. W. Morrissey versus Eddie Edwards. And then Deonna Purrazzo against a mystery opponent for the Knockouts Championship. And Brian Myers and Tennille Dashwood versus Matt Cardona and TBA in a mixed tag match that, at least on Thursday's episode, they were significantly hinting towards Chelsea Green being the surprise guest, stating that Saturday's pay-per-view would be a hot mess. So this is the show. I think got, the hook of a Kenny Omega title defense and who is going to show up, much like the advertising for last year's Slammiversary show.
Yeah, always a bit of attached interest. Who are the names that you're expecting, I suppose, outside of Chelsea Green? And, I guess what I want to get is what level of star do you think would need to appear on this show for fans to be satisfied?
Yeah, it's tough to say. You look at the candidates out there of like the Iconics, Buddy Murphy.
Iconics who might not even be able to work.
That was their whole issue that they explained on Renee Paquette's podcast of... at least at that time, we're stating that they are, their visa issue would prevent them from such a thing. Now, who knows, whatever could be rectified or not. But I guess that's kind of the interest of like who does appear here. And, Chelsea Green has stated that she was on the Ring of Honor pay-per-view, but did not. She said she wants to be a free agent for 6 months. She doesn't want to sign with any one company. So that would appear that she would be able to appear, although couldn't wrestle in Maryland because of her injury.
Interesting. Okay.
So that is the pay-per-view coming up on Saturday night. You can check out the post show for that, and we will see how much buzz Impact can acquire over the weekend, because there is a lot going on in pro wrestling. New Japan is back on Saturday with a Q and Hall show, and it's just going to get busier and busier. We've got a Tokyo Dome show next week, Way. It's finally here, the Tokyo Dome card.
Finally, yes. I can't wait. and sure it'll be interesting.
And one final thing to note is that on Saturday, our own Martin Bushby, along with Benno, they're going to be hosting a 12-hour charity stream that Wai Ting and I are both going to be a part of. Wai, you're going to be on at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, and I'm going to be on at 3 o'clock Eastern, and we'll be joined by, well, we will not be joined, but we will be a part of a cavalcade of guests, many in and around the post-wrestling community.
Yeah, I'm really excited and looking forward to this. Not only because it seems to be just a great gathering of a lot of our post-wrestling friends and people who we don't even really know, but I'm sure will be really interesting to hear Martin to speak about. But it's for a wonderful cause. It is to raise funds for the Children's Heart Surgery Fund. And I will be joined not just alone, but actually with my brother, who, this cause is actually very close to. So we'll be kind of talking about his experience and, yeah, everything else. So I look forward to sharing that time with Martin. You can find all that information. Let's throw it on all of our social media, so if you just go to our anything at Post Wrestling, at Way0937, or at I am John Pollock, you could find a link to donate as well as a link to the live stream.
Yes, so there you go. Check that out. Martin is starting at, I don't even know the time off the top of my head.
7 a.m. Eastern.
Eastern. Okay, gotcha. So 7 a.m. Eastern. You can start bright and early with Martin and spend half a day with him. Well, we will be back tonight, everyone, 10:15 p.m. Eastern Time with a full review of Friday Night SmackDown from Houston. We'll also have reports this week on the site from Eric Marcotte covering Bellator 262 tonight and the UFC card on Saturday night that features Islam Makhachev taking on Thiago Moises and the return of Miesha Tate, who, Wai, you covered her retirement fight back in 2016 when she announced after the loss to Raquel Pennington that she was stepping away. 5 years later, she's back.
5 years already. Wow.
Yeah. Almost 5 years. Yeah. That was November of 2016 at Madison Square Garden.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the reminder. All of these things are just like gone from my memory.
All right. We're back tonight, everyone. All Cafe members live, 10:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Go check out the latest edition of MCU Later, because we will see you later.